Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mr. Spindler and Mr. Herman, shut off your noise-making devices or you'll immediately be removed from the room. I'm not going to give any warnings. As soon as I hear an electronic device, Officer Duarte, they're gone. Okay? So welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee for June 4th, 2018. I'm Paul Krikorian, Chair of the Committee, and joined by Mr. Blumenfield and Mr. Kretz, and we're ready to begin. Today is the FSR, and we have a lot of closed session items as well. So here's how we're going to do today's meeting. I'm going to go ahead and take the public comment first. Then we're going to call the FSR. We're going to hear the presentation, call our special items, and then release all the departments that haven't been called by one of the members. Then we're going to hold the FSR on the table. Sorry to those of you who are remaining, but I want to get the closed session done, and then we'll come back and complete the open session. So I think that's the fairest way I can think of to manage everyone's time. So we'll go ahead and hear public comment first. I'm not going to call the stupid names. So Mr. Spindler first, followed by Mr. Herman, followed by Ms. McAllister. And then is there anyone else here who wishes to offer public comment on any item? Mr. Spindler, go. 2 minutes on the items. Okay. We'll reserve general public comment for the end of the meeting.
Yeah. All right, good. So we get to number 7. Los Angeles Police Department, disability discrimination, failure to accommodate, failure to prevent discrimination, the Ralph Act violation, hostile work environment, retaliation. Why? Because Tamar Krikorian, who smells like an anchovy, ratted out the police department's illegal employment policies. So thank you to her. Fuck the LA Police Department's unfair employment practices. It must stop.
Irrelevant.
People working in the LAPD are scared. Look around you. Captains are afraid. Sergeants are afraid. Even the police chief is afraid. Today, he didn't even show up to his TRO hearing. He sent Hugo Rossiter alone because he's afraid of the discrimination by the department. Stop fucking with the cops. The cops have to have fair employment practices. The police chief is only entitled by the charter to a maximum 4 girlfriends per term. And he's got like 7, 8 back. All these women. He promotes them to captain, but they're still being discriminated against. He gives them free cars, but they're still being discriminated. Free tickets to Washington, still discriminated. So these people are not there. So this is what happens, the ladies in the department. When you get a little chunky, you get a little fat, you get discriminated against. Yes, and for the record, we know. And Mike Bonin, who just walked in, knows that Charlie Beck is a fucking cocksucker and needs to get the fuck out of the city of Los Angeles. Fuck him.
Mr. Herman, followed by Ms. McAllister.
So for the record, we're dealing with a Housing Act violation. Let's stick to the principles here that no qualified individual with a disability shall, in the terms of disability, by any means be discriminated against. However, incidentally, with the problem of prior commentator, Mr. Encino Critic, is correct. Fuck the police. But no offense, because 42 U.S.C. 1983 states that Alicia Emerson's court case arises in a Fair Employment Housing Act. The same fucking act that I and many other HHH bitches have been discriminated against in this city of Los Angeles. Failure to accommodate, independent living, failure to accommodate. As a result, the city has used the TRO to discriminate on the basis of harassment and retaliation and fuck white niggers like me from hostile work environment. So I myself particularly know what a fucking hostile work environment is. That's why I'm here in protest, working against all harassment, all fucking retaliation, and more specifically, speaking on behalf of the Ralph Act violation, Civil Code Section 51.7 in Municipal Code 54. Which in the terms of the subchapter for 12131 definition, as used under public entity, the term public entity means don't fuck with white niggers like Herman and Spindler under any state or local government dealing with a qualified individual with a disability. That's why this woman, man, and the police department fear the city of Los Angeles, because the moment you blow the whistle, that stupid motherfucker with the fake bar license, cunt face, under white nigger 115953, Paul Krikorian Martin, has
Mr.
no
Herman,
license.
be quiet. Ms. McAllister, please.
Is this for all my items?
Good afternoon.
2 minutes?
I'm sorry?
All my items for you get
Yes.
2 minutes? Okay. Let's start with number 13, your year-end report coming in today for 2017 and 18. I'm almost sure that that report is just as scandalous as the 2018-19 budget. In that budget, you took out the showers for the homeless. You only do it once or twice a week. They have $1.2 billion under HHH for that. And you did it under the revised budget, so many people didn't see that, but I got the revised one where you took it out. You shouldn't do things like that. People are homeless. You may be homeless one day when we get there with you. Now, number 14, the next one. I don't know how you're moving around $300 million of HHH funds when I just yesterday drove around again. And your particular one, I went to yours too, Krikorian. People are living in those houses. You're not doing a darn thing over there. I'm going over there to knock on some doors and ask them, when did the city tell them they have to move, and show them this documentation saying that you're going to tear down their houses to build some affordable housing. You're not doing a darn thing, Krikorian. And I want you to do your job. Now, I drove by some yesterday, and we got a scam going on here in 7th and Wall. Weezar. He's got $56 million, and he's supposed to build it right on the corner there, and he's going across the street. He's supposed to be building 100 units. He's trying to put up across the street a 3-story. He has $56 million, and I'm not going to let him get away with that. I want diversity on this committee. We got five white men. I want to see one of the black men who's in the city chamber, Herb Wesson, Current Price, or Marquise on this.
You need to stick to the agenda items.
Excuse me?
You need to stick to the agenda. General public comments another time.
Oh, okay. Well, that was my comment for general public comment. HHH, I think we need a federal investigation of this city. This budget committee is a farce. You guys, I read that budget. I've studied accounting at the university level, and I see corruption. With 800 attorneys on staff, all of you need to be fired.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else, a member of the public, who wishes to speak? All right, seeing none, public comment is closed on all agenda items. General public comment will be reserved until the end of the meeting. So that will bring us then to, well, members, let's go ahead and deal with the consent items. I'd propose items 9, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 for consent approval, but although item 15 has a verbal amendment that Mr. Blumenfield would like to add.
9, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and anything else?
9 and 14 through 20, yes. And Mr. Blumenfield, if you want to just go ahead and offer your, there's a technical change to item number 15, if you are prepared.
I'm happy to do it. So what I want to ask is that we amend the first moving clause as follows. So it reads, I therefore move that $100,000 in the Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Program Fund number 59V-50, that's an add, and then, therefore strike out Special Gas Tax Improvement Fund number 206-50. Everything else remains the same.
All right. And with that amendment, members, are there any objections to proceeding on the consent
And I can give that to you.
matter? Please. All right. Then as amended with item number 15, items 9, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 are approved. And that will bring us then to item number 13, the FSR.
Item number 13 is the City Administrative Officer report relative to the year-end financial status report for 2017-18.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Maria Gutierrez with the City Administrative Officers. Today we present our year-end financial status report, which is our final FSR of this current fiscal year. The city began fiscal year 17-18 on solid financial footing with the reserve fund at 6.09% and cumulative reserves at 8.07%. By maintaining a cautious approach to the reserve fund, the city is now expected to close the year with a strong reserve fund of 5.83%, or approximately $339.6 million. And our total reserves are projected at 7.48%, or approximately $435.7 million. As a result of fiscal prudence throughout the year, sufficient funds are now available to offset a remaining $50.63 million in projected year-end over expenditures and unfunded items identified in this FSR. The year-end budget balancing plan consists largely of savings identified in the Capital Finance Administration Fund and the Tax and Revenue Anticipation Notes. These savings, along with the reserve fund, are recommended to be used to address our remaining shortfalls, including those that would otherwise represent liabilities in future years, such as restoring paid sworn overtime in the police department through the year end, and paying claims and settlement costs in the Ardon class action case. Regarding revenue, as part of the recent budget deliberations, the 17-18 general fund revenue was revised $7.9 million above the adopted budget level. This continues to be a reasonable projection, and no changes are recommended at this time. Our year-end projected over expenditures have increased by approximately $15.59 million since the approval of the mid-year FSR, to now a total of $50.63 million. While the Human Resource Benefits Fund Workers' Compensation account shortfall has declined by $5.57 million, and the multifamily bulky item program shortfall of $3.4 million is now being addressed next fiscal year. These reductions have been offset by new and increased shortfalls in other areas. These areas include the fire department shortfall, for example, that has increased from $6.7 million to $12.67 million due to the mutual aid deployment in 3 major wildfires within the city, as well as delayed receipts of the fiscal year 17 intergovernmental transfer program funds. There is also a new $8.36 million shortfall identified in SB 1 revenue, also referred to as the Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Act revenue. This office recently learned that a portion of the city's allotment assumed in the current fiscal year will not be received until next fiscal year. There is also a new $5.78 million shortfall reported for the Bureau of Street Services due to a shortfall in the Pavement Preservation Program. In particular, the Asphalt Plant 2 remains out of service, contributing to year-end cost increases. The Police Department shortfall has increased from the $1.81 million remaining shortfall after the mid-year FSR to a net shortfall of $4.65 million due to sworn overtime over expenditures and the planned restoration of paid overtime through the year end. Lastly, the General Services Department shortfall has increased by approximately $1.23 million to $4 million, mainly driven by higher petroleum costs. The actions recommended in this FSR will eliminate the projected over expenditures and address unfunded items. These main actions include transferring $37.06 million from the UB reserve for mid-year adjustments to various departments and funds, a $5.7 million reserve fund appropriation for the Ardon settlement, in addition to $4.3 million transferred from the UB reserve for mid-year adjustments for Ardon. There's a $2.57 million reserve fund loan to the fire department, pending receipt of the fiscal year 17 IGT funds. Also, there are reimbursements to police for sworn overtime and appropriation of surplus Measure R revenues and transfer of Measure M salary savings. Other noteworthy recommendations include $44.9 million in prior year FMS encumbrances that are exempted from the general fund encumbrance policy, and that basically consists of exempting these items from automatically being disencumbered. These are items that have been encumbered from fiscal year 16-17 and earlier. There are also approximately $17.67 million in reductions in special fund appropriations for the special gas tax improvement funds and for SB1 revenues. We are available to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Thank you very much. Members, questions for the CAO before we get to departments? Mr. Blumenfield?
Just a quick, the savings from the Capital Finance Administrative Fund and the TRAN, how much were those?
They're approximately $14 million each. For Capital Finance Administration Fund is $14 million, and for the TRAN was $14 million.
And is the TRAN mostly about just being a low interest rate? Like how did those savings, which is great, I'm just curious how those savings come about?
Yes, these were savings in debt service costs.
It's good news, but I'm just curious how it...
Natalie Brill, CAO's office. Every year we budget what we think interest rates will be when we go out to sell, and it's usually 2 or 3 months after the budget's done. So that's the savings that happen. Interest rates dropped. So that's
what?
Interest rates dropped.
Right.
So the amount we put in the budget is what we used.
So that $28 million is basically a result of interest rates?
For TRAN, yes. For Cap Finance, it has the Capital Finance Administration Fund. We did refundings. We did other things that helped save money during the year, and that's where that savings comes from also.
So sort of prudent financing. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, Mr. Kretz?
Yeah, I wonder if you can explain how the Willis settlement is or isn't impacted by canceling the sidewalk acceleration project. And in the context of the fact that we continually get constituent complaints about sidewalks and the settlement plan is supposed to help us address the issue, what does it mean in that context?
David Horano with the Office of CAO. The cancellation of the sidewalk acceleration program does not impact our obligations under the Willett settlement. 2017-18 is our first year of the obligation, and we have met the obligation so far. Unfortunately, it's an acceleration program, and it means work will be delayed into next year, but we're fine under the Willits program for now.
So that was just an option to try and help us address our sidewalk needs, but not an obligation under the settlement.
Correct.
Any way that we could avoid having to eliminate that project?
Well, we need another $2.3 million to do that. At this point, we don't have that, so it would wait. The designs are ready to go. The work would have to wait till 18-19, which is really only about a month away. So.
Fair enough. Thank you.
I have one question that maybe you can respond to regarding engineering. They had a significant surplus due to special fund vacancies, particularly in sewer capital fund. What's the reason for so many unfilled vacancies there, especially since they're mostly special funded?
I'm going to defer to our budget analyst, Roy Cervantes.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, Roy Cervantes, Office of the CAO. One of the reasons for the vacancies in that fund in particular, the Bureau continuously tries to keep up with our hiring in terms of the attrition, and they tend to just lose more employees than they're able to hire. So in that particular area, it's a difficult area for them to catch up with the hiring on. So they've had that a number of vacancies in that particular fund for a number of years, and it's something they've continued to work on.
Okay. So from the CAO's perspective, this isn't something that a hiring plan that's being slowed because of any other concerns outside of the Bureau?
Not that we're aware of.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anything else, members of the CAO? All right. So What I'd like to do is have your requests for departments to be called special to stay, and then we'll dismiss everybody else. So to start off, I'm going to ask for fire, police, street services, and engineering.
Nothing to add. We'll add HSID.
And HSID. Anything else, Mr. Bloomfield? All right. Everybody other than fire, police department, street services, engineering, and HSID, get out while the getting's good. Thank you very much for coming down. I appreciate your being here. And so with that, we're going to hold the FSR now on the table, and we're going to go into our closed session. So folks, if I can just have your attention for a minute. We're going to go into closed session now. So fire, police, street services, and engineering, and HSID, hang around for us if you would, but we need to start addressing our closed session items. We're going to take the closed session out of order. And Mr. Spindler and Mr. Herman, you can start heading for the door as well. Get going. We're going to take these out of order, number 12, number 1 and 2 together, then number 3, and then number 6. Those are the closed session items that we're going to be taking out of order. Okay? So the first item will be 12, then we're going to take 1 and 2 together.
Only those on 12 in the room, everybody else outside, please.
Thanks for your patience. This was a grueling agenda because there's been a little bit of a backlog because of our budget process, so I appreciate your being patient and waiting for us to finish our closed session. So that we're going to resume consideration of item 13, the FSR. Walk through the building, please. Walk. And so the departments we had called were fire, police, street services, engineering, and HSID. So let's go ahead and go in that order. So if we can call up the fire department first, please. We have the fire department?
No, they left.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Emilio Rodriguez, Fire Department.
Okay, so there was a Mr. Herman, go outside if you're going to do that. Okay, so there was a significant budget overrun here, part of which was due to the, fire demands, obviously. And one of the point in the report was that there was mutual aid demand on the fire department's budget, and there was delays in the IGT reimbursement. So can you talk about both of those things, the IGT reimbursement, what's going on with that, when can that be anticipated to be completed, number 1, and number 2, on the mutual aid, I assume we're going to at some point receive reimbursement for that from sister agencies. Is that right?
Correct. In the current year we have a base budget of $6 million for sworn overtime, which is the account used for to support the mutual aid deployments. We're on track to spend $11 million above that, which is a major contributor, the largest contributor to our deficit. And a good portion of that is being captured this year, but due to logistics, some of that will carry over into next year. We do expect to recover much of that over the next couple of years. The IGT reimbursement, again, that required an outlay of about $11 million to front fund the match to get an additional $7 million back. And because of the timing, we were not anticipating to get that back this fiscal year. Triggered a reserve fund loan, which will be paid back on July 1st. Incidentally, we are starting to see those reimbursements this year, but due to the approvals in place, much of the transactions will take place on July 1st.
Okay, on the IGT.
Correct.
So that process should be completed in the next fiscal year.
Right. In July,
before the end of the next fiscal year.
Right.
Because done this before. and
Much
It
of it'll
took a
be
lot
squared
longer
away
than
by
expected.
July.
Okay,
It's just,
okay. And then, and did you say over the next couple of years for mutual aid reimbursement?
right, when you consider the billings for in-city fires, which we work with the CAO's office through the processing of what they call FMAGs, and for the activity that was outside, the wildfire activity outside of the city, which we coordinate directly with the federal government. Yeah, the magnitude of fires was such that we do expect reimbursement through, over the next couple of years. It won't all be recovered next year. And again, we're talking total of about 11 million to be staggered between this year and next couple of years.
Okay. Okay, very good. Members? Anything for fire? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks again for your patience. And let's go ahead and bring up police next. So, hi. I just wanted you to walk through the sworn overtime over expenditures and how that's being dealt with, if you could.
Okay, I'm Anne Marie Sauer, LAPD. I know when we were here last, we talked about bringing, the instruction to bring it down. Obviously, we still have, because of the MOU, we had to allow employees to bank or choose cash, and then we ultimately, because we did run out of the general fund overtime, so for non-reimbursable overtime. So as of April 1st, we went to time. Some of the overtime has basically been, we did have the fires earlier in the year, some of the special events which are being reimbursed here, and then the other overtime has basically been patrol. We've had to continue with some of that. We made reductions in terms of managing it by reducing some overtime in our detective operations, some department admin, homicide investigations, some end-of-watch overtime looking at what reports could be done the next day versus what had to be done that day, some of the bookings at the end of watch, how that could be handled. So we did obviously still incur some overtime costs, which is, in addition to what we already had transferred into our accounts earlier in the year. That was essentially where we've overspent.
Okay. With regard to the fire overtime, is any of that reimbursable, whether through mutual aid or otherwise?
That will be. It's just there's a big delay, much like the fire department just said. So we work with both the CAO and the fire department on those costs. So for the local fires, we've submitted some information. We're submitting some backup information, and then for the fires in Santa Barbara, we sent a bill to them earlier this week for that mutual aid.
Okay. Thank you. Members? Mr. Bloomfield?
Yeah, on the overtime, it was 20 million overtime. Was it predictable? Like this time last year, would you have known that we would have spent 20 million extra in overtime?
Where are you getting the $20 million figure, sir?
Well, how much in overtime? I think there was overall, didn't we go about 20 million over the overtime amount that was budgeted?
Right. In the mid-year, we reported a projection of over about 18.6 million. We did transfers into the department that brought that down to about 11.86. We assumed that the department would solve 10 million of it, and then leaving 1.86 million. We're reporting in the FSR that it's been brought down to, 4.65 million, which about 1.8 million of that is for the fires, and the remainder is what we're trying to solve with the FSR.
I get it. It's always a frustration I think we all have, which is, and maybe I'm just harping back to that. This isn't the time and place to do it, but that we tend to know we're going to go over the overtime, and then it comes to this point in the year, and lo and behold, we have the overtime that we knew we would have, but we didn't budget for. So it is what it is. I appreciate what it's being spent on, so thank you.
Yes, but the difference is the police department doesn't have constant staffing, and the police department can manage its overtime based on what's budgeted. And so when there are cost overruns, we have to figure out management solutions, not just budgetary solutions for addressing that. So that would be the one distinction I would draw. Members, anything else for police? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your being here. Thanks again for your patience. Street services? Okay, so there was a shortfall in the pavement preservation program, $5.75 million. Can you walk us through how, usually, in the past, street services has come to year end and we've had to deal with surpluses. So on the one hand, I'm glad you're spending the money, but on the other hand, how did we go $5 million plus over? And was this primarily pavement preservation? Was it primarily slurry, or was this reconstruction, or some combination of both?
So Stephanie Clements, good afternoon, committee members. Stephanie Clements from Bureau of Street Services. This was a little bit of an unusual and unprecedented second half of the fiscal year because both of our asphalt plants were down, and we've never had that. The city owns 2 asphalt plants. As you know, one asphalt plant is being fully reconstructed, and this asphalt plant 2 also went down in the end of the fiscal year. We were replacing some parts, doing some regular retrofitting. We've had some complications. This plant was originally fabricated in 1925. It was recently retrofitted in 1989, so it's an old plant. So we added new parts to it, and there's been some complications with the new parts assimilating with the old parts. All the new parts, there's not parts for this plant that you can buy in a store. They're all fabricated for the plant. So we've had some complications getting this plant online. And when we have no asphalt plants, there are some serious cost implications to that. One, instead of purchasing raw materials, we're purchasing a final product from one of our 2 asphalt vendors, which increases the cost. Also, we are beholden to their supply. And we normally try to purchase asphalt aggregate that's 50% recycled content. The vendors didn't always have that product available, so we had to purchase 20% recycled contact with aggregate, which is a more expensive product. In addition to that, because the asphalt plants were down, we had to hire the 2 vendors to truck that asphalt to our various project sites. So the costs associated with trucking relating to those 2 vendors also went up. So there are some real reasons, and it really relates to asphalt. But like you said, our goal, we've been criticized in the past for returning money. So our mandate this year was to spend every penny we can. And so that was really our drive to spend what we could. We didn't anticipate both asphalt plants being down. In addition, we do have some projects that we were not funded for, and the plan was really not to ask for more money if we didn't need it, but to absorb that work through our budget. But unfortunately, like I said, because of the plants, that really threw us a curveball.
Okay. Makes sense, members? Just how much of a differential is there in the cost of asphalt that we produce in the plant and what you buy on the open market?
So basically, the product that we buy from All-American and Vulcan is about $33 per ton. Even Vulcan in trucking the material to us is basically wants to give us an 18%, ask for an 18% increase in the trucking cost. And bottom line, they're coming out of Irwindale. And so it takes a huge amount of trucks to ship from Irwindale, say, to San Pedro, someplace like that. And so that incurred additional cost. The other asphalt materials, if you buy the less wrap material that's in it, your price goes up to where you can pay as much as $85 per ton for asphalt.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And next up is engineering. So it's not often that a department that has a surplus gets brought up to respond to questions, but I just wanted to get engineering's take on these special fund vacancies. Why is it that there's so many vacancies, especially in sewer construction, and what's the plan for getting those vacancies filled on an expedited basis?
Roy Cervantes, Office of the CAO. So the department was here earlier, or representation was here earlier during closed session, but they're no longer available. As I mentioned, the main reason is they are not hiring as quickly as possible to keep up with transfers and attrition.
So what's the plan? Because, they have funded vacancies, and what's the management plan for dealing with whatever the problems are that are getting in the way?
I mean, that's still under discussion, I think, with the department. We are unfreezing positions, 20, 30 at a time. So it's certainly not a lack of, trying to hire enough people. They are just leaving for various reasons, and it typically can't keep up. So we monitor their total employment through the year. Despite that number of unfreezes, they're still only netting, less than 10, an increase. So it's just an effort to keep on hiring for them.
Well, something like 2/3 of those vacancies are special funded, which I assume the flip side is that 1/3 of them are general funded.
Correct. Well, 45% of their budget is from the sewer capital and maintenance fund. So,
If, I think our preference, I think I can speak for all of us, is our preference would be to hire the people that they've been budgeted to hire and to get them on the streets and get them doing the work. But if that's not realistically going to happen, especially when it comes to the general fund positions, then I think we need to have a hard look at that and whether it makes sense to continue to carry that on the budget if we're not going to be able to hire it up. So I think, I'm really sorry that they couldn't stay, but I think one way or the other, we got to match those two things up. We can't continue to carry budgeted vacant positions if there's no realistic plan to get them hired.
Understood. So. Most of those vacancies are related to SEM, and it is a constant discussion that we're having with them. Our special fund analyst also has the discussion with them too as well, because the other effect of that is there's an impact on related costs if we don't account for that. So that is accounted for to some degree, but I think this was just an unusual year for them as well. There typically is a surplus in SEM, but I think this year is a little higher than it usually is.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Anything else, members, for engineering? Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for staying. Okay, that brings up HSID. Mr. Blumenfield?
Thank you. Yeah, but it's almost the identical conversation that you just had with BOE. As the chair said, we usually don't bring folks up when you have a surplus, but you guys have a $6.4 million surplus, and the department has a 20% vacancy rate and attrition. Even though you're authorized and funded to backfill specific positions. So it's the same issue here, and I'm worried because with Triple H and bridge housing, all that require very quick action from HSID, are we ready for this workload, and what is our management plan to make sure that we get there? Because it's all of our top priorities that that this homeless funding get spent expeditiously and efficiently.
Good afternoon, Kendra Leal with HSID. We are currently working internally to create a hiring plan, and we are having conversations with the CAO in order to manage our vacancies. We did run into some difficulty throughout the year because there were not available lists. So we are currently working within those means.
Emily Cervantes from the Office of the CAO. As Kendra mentioned, they have been working with us. We've been trying to find creative solutions to help them mitigate these vacancies while there are no available lists. So they have, HIT has been one of the departments that has been really using the local targeted hire program, filling in office trainees in lieu of administrative clerks. And in the cases for management analysts where they have a lot of vacancies, they are also trying to use the management aid classification while they are waiting for the management analyst list, a revised management analyst to come out.
Is there anything more the council can do to help expedite this and make sure that you guys can get rid of the 20% vacancy rate?
I will definitely take that back to the department, and we can get back to you on that.
Okay, because we stand ready to help in any way we can.
Thank you so much.
Members? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for the departments. Members, any other comments or questions on the FSR? Okay.
Mr. Chair, pardon me, Richard Williams, City Clerk's Office. I do have an amendment from the CLA for the FSR.
Okay.
Would you like that read into
Yes,
the record?
please.
This is a CLA amendment to the FSR. The CLA proposes number 1 to transfer and appropriate $1.3 million from Council Fund 100/28 account 1010 salaries general to the following to better align with current expenditure patterns. A, $1 million to Council Fund 100/28 account 1070s salaries as needed. B, $300,000 to Council Fund 100/28 account 6010 office and administration expenses. Number 2, transfer appropriate $250,000 from AB 1290 Fund number 53P, account number 281210, Council District 10 redevelopment projects -services to Council Fund 100/28, account number 1070, salaries as needed to support operational expenditures. And number 3, transfer appropriate $75,000 from AB 1290 Fund number 53P, account number 281201, Council District 1 redevelopment projects -services to Council Fund 100/28, account number 1070s, salaries as needed to support operational expenditures.
Very good, thank you. And to that, I would also add that I would like to request that we amend the report to transfer the year-end surplus of $348,938 in the city clerk's budget to the 2018-2019 line item in the unappropriated balance for neighborhood council election outreach activities. And if there's no objection to those amendments, is there any objection to the FSR as a whole as amended? Seeing none, it will be the action of the committee to approve the CAO's recommendations as amended. And that brings us to the end of our agenda, except for general public comment. Come on up.
All right. So we had to wait all this fucking time for 1 fucking minute of general fucking public comment. What is this world coming to? Bonin's fucking asleep. Koretz is asleep. It's a fucking mess. But you need hire. The solution, of course, is to hire Tamar Krikorian and H.Rag Krikorian. These 2 fucking punks, you can put them on the budget right now to join the suspended attorney Paul Krikorian on the list of these overpaid fucking city employees fucking up our streets, fucking up our concrete, fucking up our trees, fucking up the police department. And now we got a new police chief, is Michael Moore. Instead of a brown-skinned person, we got another white motherfucker to sit there and put niggers like us in fucking cages for the next 8 fucking years. Fuck Eric Garcetti, fuck this city, and fuck Paul Krikorian.
So let's not take it back LAPD, over the budget, overtime, fucked up asphalt, more holes, more patches, poor infrastructure, engineers that can't do their work because there's not enough fucking engineers, and that was the reason why we had to hire H-Rag and that other Tamar fat bitch to get a job and patch up the fucking holes of this city. It's a factual thing. That's why $2.3 million is wasted under Woods versus Los Angeles every fucking year. For that same fucking reason, staff budget reports are inaccurate. Not accounted for in that factor is that we have that stupid motherfucker in development for $72 million, Samuel Leung, and who got blamed for it? Janice Hahn, thrown under the bus by that fucking stupid cop, Joe Busquiano, and fuck the new chief of police, and fuck the city of Los Angeles.
All right, if there's, we have these gentlemen escorted from the room, please.
Mr. Chair, would you like to adjourn the meeting?
I'm sorry?
Adjourn the meeting?
No, we're not adjourned yet, actually. I'm still in the process of excluding Mr. Herman and Mr. Spindler from the meeting. They're continuing to disrupt what we're trying to do. Gotta wait that long to kick him out?
Two stooges?
Huh?
Is that the two stooges? Or
and if there's no other business before the committee, we are.